It starts recording now. Right. How you doing, Compton? You good?
Hey Tim, how are you? I'm good. It's good seeing you, mate.
Yeah, man, long time no speak. I was thinking doing a small podcast with you. Like kind of a first thing. Mainly because I think you have probably a lot more to say than a lot of other people I know. Let me just like give the people like a small summary of you, and you stop
All
me
right.
if I'm wrong somewhere. Um, so you're a law graduate, um, who also holds a Bachelor's of Arts in International Relations and Law and Society from the Memorial University of Newfoundland in Canada. I did my
Yeah.
research, you see. Uh, then you acquired your LLB at the University of York, where we met.
Yeah.
And then you went further on to finish your LLM at BPP Law School in Leeds. You then graduated in 2019, and you currently work as a trainee solicitor at a law firm in Belize. That's
Uh,
correct, right?
yep, that's all correct. And while I was at BPP, I completed the legal practice course, which is what you need to do to be able to train as a solicitor in England and Wales.
Oh, right.
So,
Okay. Yeah.
so,
How,
so I
how
did
did
that
how
along.
did that go actually?
It was a bit tough because I did that and the LLM at the same time.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it was
Yeah.
stressful days, stressful days. No white hair, all brown. No white hair.
For the people who don't know, I lived with you for when you when your last year at York, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
and I was in my second year. We lived together, but obviously we still saw each other in the next years just because we went Leeds and that was quite close by. Um, but now you're back in Belize, right? Like now
Yes, I
for
am.
since when? Since 2009? No, since
I back last year in October, so
soon
it's
enough.
been a bit over a year since
Yeah,
I've.
right.
Uh,
So meaning that you experienced like Corona and all of this in Belize.
yeah, actually, interesting that while we're speaking this morning, well,
Yeah.
morning my time, evening your time, we just had the highest amount of deaths in
Oh,
one. It's not much compared to many places, but for a small country like
yeah.
Belize, it's a lot. So we had 10,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and I think we're close to 100 deaths, which is quite a lot for a country
Yeah.
that has a population of 400,000, which is just a rough estimate.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
exact, but yeah. So it's unfortunate, and I think the population believes that it will get worse
Yeah.
based on the events of the last few days. Uh, we are bracing for an increase in cases and in deaths at the moment.
Yeah.
I've just online that from one of our news teams that the newly elected minister of State in the Ministry of Finance, the Honorable Mike Espat, has tested positive for COVID-19 and is hospitalized. I don't know if that's an official report, but that's
Yeah.
what I've read from one of the more reliable news teams in
Yeah.
Belize. And the former Minister of National Security, who was just voted out of power by a landslide,
Yeah.
he's tested positive as well and is hospitalized. So
Yeah.
it is at
Tough
the moment.
times. Tough times. I mean, the thing is like across the world, like a lot of politicians, political leaders, like actually got the virus. I mean, I don't even have to say Trump and all that, but like Boris Johnson as well. I know some important members of the German government. So yeah, it's tough times, and I think like everyone like kind of gets affected by it. It's no like can't really avoid it, right?
Yeah, you really can't. You could do
Yeah,
just do your best to stay safe and be clean,
yeah.
and then it will
Anyway,
happen.
yeah. Let me just like also give the people who are listening to this like a small summary of Belize, because I think a lot of people don't even know where Belize is unless they know you or they been there on fucking holiday or something.
We're well known, I think, especially since over the last few years we have been topping the charts on tourist destinations. So Belize is
For
well
real?
known. There's still many more places we would like to reach out to, but
Yeah,
if I were to say Belize 15 years ago to now, it's
yeah.
more known for sure.
So maybe the 10 people who are listening to this, like they're gonna get exposed by it, and you have like 10 more tourists. That's the same number as your death cases, you know? Like, jeez, that was dark.
that was that is not.
Yeah. But anyway, so like Belize, you're from Belize City, right? Which is actually not the capital. Capital city is actually Belmopan. Uh, Damn, I remember
Correct.
that. I visited you in Belize in 2018, spring holidays, I think. Yeah, pretty sure spring holidays for 2 weeks. Geographically, Belize lies in the like at the Caribbean, borders Mexico to the north, Guatemala to the west and south, and the Caribbean Sea to the east. And the population, as you said before, has around like 400,000 people. That's correct, right?
Yeah, that's all correct.
Yeah, and then the country became independent in 1981. Was a former British colony, formerly known as British Honduras. That's why the official language is English, and most of you speak Creole, right? Which is a Caribbean dialect. Um, I think a lot of people have never or haven't been in touch with Belizean Creole, so I thought it might be interesting to give us a presentation of what Creole sounds like, because I find it really funny. I remember when I went back, I met also your mates and all this, and when you spoke in Creole, bro, it was tough to understand, man. It was tough to understand. So I just gave you a sentence, which
Okay,
I'm gonna
let's do
send you
it.
now, on Skype, and you just gonna say it, and then I'm gonna translate it. Wait, so I'm gonna send it to you here, and you try to read it in Creole.
All right, I still haven't gotten it. I'm just waiting to see.
Wait, is it on the chat?
Yeah, it. Oh man. Um, yeah, you see, this is what I hate. The internet was perfect, and now it's acting up. I haven't received anything. Um, yeah. All right, so I'm just going to say something in Creole.
Yeah, just say something Creole, man, and then try to
Okay,
translate it.
so um, what
Talk about
I'm
COVID.
going to
Talk
say.
about COVID, actually.
Sorry?
Can you say something about COVID, but in Belizean Creole?
Okay, and then I'll translate it afterwards.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so in Creole, it's gonna be this. Boy, while a lot of people in this country got COVID, while a lot of people sick, all of them they dead.
Right. Okay. Okay. The thing is, like, the first part was like, I mean, I did understand the content, but
Yeah.
some sentence structures which I was like, oh, what? But I
What
mean,
I
everyone speaks
basically,
Creole there, right? Like,
yeah, majority of the people. You also, so like you said, English is the first language. Creole is our dialect,
mm-hmm.
but the second language of the country is Spanish. Quite a
Yeah,
large part of the country is Hispanic,
yeah,
so that's our second language per se.
right,
But what I just said in Creole in English
yeah.
is basically saying, "Yo, dude, there are a lot of people in Belize that have COVID, and a lot of them are dying."
Oh shit, right.
Yeah.
I
So
I
for
couldn't have
me, the thing is, I will be
literally
honest.
translated.
Sorry.
I wouldn't have been able to literally translate it that way. I think but yeah.
Well, to be honest, I speak Creole easily,
Yeah,
but I think there are people who speak Creole better than me. I do still use a lot of English
yeah.
when I speak. I think those 3 years in the UK, where I had no choice but to speak English every single day,
Yeah,
actually made me speak English more without even noticing that I'm doing it.
bro.
So, but
You picked up some London slang from Andrew, didn't you?
that
You used
stupid
like words
cockney
like bruv.
That's you know where I got that from. That's Andrew's fault.
Yeah. Well, yeah, bruv. So you don't have. Do you have like a similar like a equivalent to bruv or mate or lad?
We really say bro. In Creole, me bale.
Sorry.
So in Creole, instead of saying bro or
Yeah.
lad, in
Yeah.
Creole we say me bale.
Me bane. Which basically
So
means the same. Like basically means bro.
that's bro or lad or my friend or buddy. So you just say
Right. Right.
you go up to your friend and be like, "Yo, me bale, what's up?"
Jeez. Right. I don't know. I can't remember actually that if anyone of your mates in Belize taught me other stuff. I mean, I remember bois, which is boy.
Yeah, boy
Uh,
and girl is gal.
I still have a video of your mate Mike.
Oh yeah,
Speaking
there
Creole.
you go.
Yeah. No, that was funny. Right. Yeah. Well, that's really cool. I mean, uh, back to like stuff which is going on right now. I think this podcast should be mostly about obviously Belize because it's such a unique topic because I don't think like many people know about what's going on really, like what's going on in the country, not just about the country. Obviously we talked about COVID. I mean, can you like tell us like how the situation was handled in Belize? So like did you have any lockdowns? Were people protesting? Because I don't know if you saw it, but across Europe and America, there have been this like a lot of like protests of against the lockdowns, against quarantine, against COVID. I don't know, like what was going on in Belize?
Well, we in Belize we are always aware of what's happening in the United States because our news
Mm-hmm.
we get a lot of American news, CNN, MSNBC. So we are very aware of what happened in Belize. We had our first case at the very end of March. I think possibly the last day of March, if
Yeah.
I'm remembering properly. We went into a lockdown from April until June.
Mm-hmm.
You were allowed to go and buy your necessities, food, your toiletries,
Yeah.
that sort of stuff you were allowed to buy. But there was a 8 p.m. curfew, and that curfew was in place for quite a long time. We did not have people protesting. What we did see were people pushing for the lockdown, because I will say this very honestly, Belize people are very scared deep down in their hearts. I know that they are scared
Yeah. Yeah.
for their loved ones and themselves to be sick. And
Yeah.
so we saw people who were like pushing for the lockdown. It came, and then it was lifted after I think 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, we start seeing people were getting a bit upset that the lockdown was so long. People wanted to go back to work from their offices. People wanted some form of normalcy to take
Yeah.
place. We did get back a bit. It was like a semi-opening, if I can use that term.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's we went, I think, along with New Zealand and about 5 or 6 other countries. Belize was one of the countries that did not have COVID for an entire month.
Right.
And then after that, we started getting cases again, and it's just been on the increase ever since.
So when was
The
that? When was that? Like, do you
I
remember like
think
what month?
I think August, if I am correct.
Yeah.
I think
That's
July,
actually
August.
quite late compared to. I remember Europe started end of March, pretty sure, or like first case of Italy and all this like beginning of March, and then so if it start like the real cases they start in August. I
Yeah,
mean,
I would say between the first time between March and say July,
mhm,
we had about just 20 something cases, if I'm correct.
mhm,
I would not necessarily call that a wave.
yeah,
I think the wave came in August because from August to September, 30 days, I think we got up to 1,000 cases. And from September to now, we have 4,700 cases, if I'm correct, total, not active, just total.
yeah,
And I think that's quite a lot in the span of just 2.5 months. As
yeah.
of last night, we have 2,091 active cases, and we have about 2,400, I guess, or something around there,
Okay.
of recovered cases, and we are inching very close to 100 deaths at
Mm.
this time.
I
So,
mean, like, I can imagine like the impact, especially for Belize, which is really reliant on the tourist sector, as you mentioned before.
yeah,
I mean,
yes,
the impact must be hard. Like, I know like a lot of countries which usually rely on tourist countries, like they're fucked. Easy as that. So what do you think? Like, how did that affect obviously the tourist industry? Because I've actually read that there are some islands like Fiji and all this who now offer like holidays for super rich people. Like they actually have to have a test and all and come with a private yacht or private jet and all this, and then that's fine. So that's how they like kind of like get back their revenue. So I was reading that. I can't remember where I was reading that, but do you know like how Belize tries to handle it? What their plan
um,
is?
well, the tourism industry was the very, very first industry that got affected, no
Yeah,
doubt.
yeah,
And it it came in like a broom and just swept everything. Many,
yeah,
many people were unemployed. What happened as a result of that was the government at the time decided to do a relief fund, and we had to borrow money to say pad that relief
yeah,
fund.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, the tourism industry was the first and hardest um, that suffered from COVID. There's so many people who rely on tourism in Belize. The tourism season is from October or late October up until I would say early April.
hmm,
And so when COVID hit, it was just coming to the end of the tourist season. And now tourism should be opening back up around this time of year normally.
yeah,
So the plan, we have a new government. They are going to get working on their plan on how to rebound from COVID or to have tourism operate while COVID is here. In
hmm,
July, the former prime minister it took time for us to reopen the international airport.
hmm,
We reopened the airport in August with different restrictions and rules that had to be followed. And only there were certain hotels that tourists were allowed to stay at. You had to be a gold certified hotel to accommodate tourists.
okay.
So it
So it's
was a
very
way,
limited.
yes, very limited. And it was a way to get people to start coming back to Belize for tourism. But
Hmm.
it was overnight tourism. It's not one day tourism with the cruise ships, which is also a large factor in the tourism industry in Belize.
Yeah, of course.
So
Yeah,
we will wait to see what happens with that with this new administration.
yeah,
A lot of people during COVID ended up working from home. A lot of people lost their jobs. A lot.
yeah,
And you also have the cattle industry, you have the poultry industry. All of these industries got affected by COVID, especially the ones that
Yeah.
we trade with Mexico and Guatemala, who are right next door to us and
Yeah.
have way higher cases of COVID-19 than we do. So those were affected. Uh, People had to figure out different strategies or a
Hmm.
workaround from really going broke or really ending up with no sort of income coming in.
Yeah.
So but right now, I think I would say maybe from about July, August-ish,
Yeah.
you see more people back at work, back in the office. There are still people working from home, but we have progressed a little bit as compared to April and May and June.
Yeah.
So it's just to see how we keep on going, which is interesting because while we have opened up the country a bit more, COVID is just increasing, and I
Yeah.
think that is expected.
That's the thing. Like, I feel a lot of people forget about, like, here, especially, there's a discussion on, like, should we have stricter measures, or should we actually open up the economy, blah blah. There's a huge debate on here, and I think people forget that there are actually two sides, because in the end of the day, like, either people lose their jobs, lose basically like their livelihoods, like how do we pay for the food, or people lose their loved ones, like, because Corona is no joke. And I think every country kind of like tries to do their best in all this, but the problem is, in the end, it kind of gets blamed on the politicians, and this is what I want to refer to now, because obviously every country right now, every government struggles, or, like, puts measures in, and they're obviously not that popular. How's in Belize? How popular is the government? And you mentioned before, on last Wednesday were the general elections. What kind of role did COVID play in those elections, and what other things were there? What other discussion topics were there during this election?
All right, so yes, we just had election 3 days ago. Um, the opposition entering the election was the People's United Party,
Mm-hmm.
and the government going into the election was the United Democratic Party. Um, Leading up to the election, the United Democratic Party was coming to the end of 3 terms, consecutive terms. The first ever political party in Belize to do that.
Yeah.
And on election day, COVID did not stop people from coming out. We had 81% of registered voters come out to vote, which is extremely high.
Mm-hmm.
And once I saw that level of turnout, I knew that the opposition will win, and they did. They was a landslide victory, 26 seats to 5. We only have 31 members of parliament.
Yeah. Bro, yeah,
Most
that
of
is that is definitely a Jesus. That is definitely a landslide.
it
A
is,
bit
it is,
dangerous though, isn't it? I mean, if a party has that much control over the parliament, that makes it also really dangerous. It doesn't matter if you do agree or disagree with them, right?
well, it does. This is not the first time we've had such a big one. In 1998, the People's United Party defeated the United Democratic Party 26 to 3. And then in 2008, the United Democratic Party defeated the People's United Party 25 to 6. So they have a supermajority right now,
Yeah,
and we do have an elected Senate. The senators are appointed 6 by the Prime Minister, 3 by the Leader of the Opposition,
yeah,
and there are 4 senators who come from the Teachers Union, the Belize Chamber of Commerce and Business sector, the
yeah,
churches, and the NGO sector. So in total, there are 13 senators. So the government still has a majority, but it's in the Senate where it gets interesting. Do these public sector senators support what the government is doing, ride along with them, or do
mm-hmm.
they oppose? If they oppose and join the opposition in opposing legislation, then some things can easily be passed through. But
Yeah,
as we've seen past, the private sector senators and the churches and all of them, they do support certain things, they don't support certain things,
Yeah.
and it's just to wait and see. But with a majority in the House of Representatives with 26 to 5, yeah, the government has
So what
power.
was the promise then? Like, did they promise more restrictions because of COVID, or what was there a difference between the two parties? Did the actual election surround itself with the questions about COVID, or were there other questions? Because obviously Belize
Well,
has a lot of other issues as well.
yeah. I was good. So regarding that, entering to the election, COVID was a topic.
Yeah.
But the way the turnout on election day happened, COVID probably was at the back of their minds that day. Um, a lot of people, in my view and what I've seen, really, is that
Mm-hmm.
people were wanted softer restrictions. They wanted to get back to some form of normalcy.
Yeah.
Both parties really campaigned regarding COVID, saying that we want to accept the fact that we have to live with this, but to do so in a safe way, in a way to make sure that people are not dying. Um,
Yeah.
they did not really come out saying we want very hard restrictions. If you elect our party to government, we will have very hard restrictions. Neither political party really said that. They
Yeah.
were just putting it in the middle, like we want to open up the country as much as we can, but we want to stay safe. But really and truly, it depends on the people if they take care of themselves.
Yeah.
So there are other topics people discuss the economy. That was a big one. Our debt is very high,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not just from the previous administration; it's previous administrations from like the
I mean,
1980s. Every
it accumulates, doesn't
yeah,
it? Like,
it's
we all know,
just
like, debt
I think
accumulates,
in
and the
the
longer you
last
wait, yeah, the more it gets. So
I think in the last 20 years, 20 roughly 20 years,
yeah.
our debt has tremendously
Yeah.
increased. They could like totally ballooned. Um, and so that's a problem that was our campaign point for
Yeah.
both parties. And a next issue really was that people were complaining that while the United Democratic Party, when they were in government, did a lot of infrastructure,
Yeah.
people were saying you cannot eat streets, you cannot eat infrastructure. They wanted to be able to make more money to put into their pockets to be able to buy food and survive, really.
Yeah.
For those who said that that wasn't true. There are those who say that yes, it's true. It depends on who you ask, but that definitely played a role because the current administration also used that to their advantage, saying that people need to see the economy grow, they need to see the country develop, they need to see the country move in a direction that would see the money trickle down to the common man or the poor man and woman.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they campaigned very hard on that. And I think
Yeah.
that was a winning for them. Meanwhile, the outgoing administration, they campaigned on the work that they have done, the transformation they have done, a lot of infrastructure. And I think people were just had enough
Mm.
that the infrastructure is great. It makes a difference in a country, but they just believe in the idea that we need to start having more money in our pocket,
Yeah.
which, to be honest, will be very hard in a time like this.
I mean, to be fair, like, I think so. I did obviously a little research on the elections as well, and as you said before, I think the last time the landslide victories and all this happened in said 2008 and 19 end of 90s. Those were all
19,
the times when economic crisis happened, right? So I think we all know what 2008, like the big financial crisis. End
yes.
of 90s was a dot-com bubble, and right now it's a COVID crisis. So I guess it's like the common stuff people don't understand sometimes, that look, politicians, like, it doesn't matter if they say this or the other thing, they sometimes get just out elected because of bad timing, or like, it's not maybe their fault, it's rather the fact that people are just unhappy with the situation, even though the situation was not really the fault of the politicians.
Well, regarding
So
what you
yeah.
said now, there was, and of course, there's always the issue of corruption. That will always be a topic every election for every single party.
Yeah.
The newly elected government, they campaigned that the United Democratic Party was involved in too many corruptions, too many government ministers selling property to their families and friends for little money.
Mm-hmm.
And the United Democratic Party was campaigning, saying to the people, look, these people who want you to elect them are the same people from the 1998 2008 administration who were accused of the same things. You had ministers selling property to their friends and cronies. So it was just a repeat of the same things, just flipped from one party to the next.
Yeah.
Um, but this election, I think, was not a victory. It was not a victory for the People's United Party to say they went out and they campaigned very hard. I'm not saying that to take anything away from them. It was a
Yeah.
people's victory. People just had enough. 12 years, the longest serving administration. It's like time for you to go. And
Yeah.
the same thing happened in 2008 when they told the People's United Party, you've been in there for 10 years. It's time for you to go. And
Fair enough.
it goes to my surprise, it shows that Belizeans, especially in a time of social media at its highest, that if you mess up, we will send you home. We will vote you out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's going to be like that even more since now every administration is under heavy scrutiny and the media and the social media as well. Anytime they slip up, it's already on the news. You're seeing it, you know. There's more access to information. So I think that any government in a time like this has to do their best to fly as perfect as they can because the
Yeah.
people won't tolerate it, especially young people. Because I will say that I think one of the reasons there was a wave in this election was because there was a high voter turnout between people who were ages 18 to 25.
Yeah.
There's no statistics on that, but I highly believe it.
I mean that's the thing, isn't it? Like young people coming out to vote, like that's not even a thing only in Belize, right? It happens recently everywhere. Like in Europe, in the US. I mean, there's a reason why Trump lost this one, even though he had the most votes, like second most votes ever, because the first most votes ever did Joe Biden receive, and it's because young people finally realized what the hell are we doing here? Like we gotta like come on. If you have it, like this is an extreme example because the US, like you can't get worse than Trump, but in this like in that situation, like I think then you can get young people out, and then you can see it with the movement. Was it Fridays for Future, Swedish girl Greta, which no matter what's your opinion on it, is like it shows that young people actually do care, right? So that's I think a good sign because I do believe that the young generation will have a good impact to the future because I think boomers in general made it really bad, right? So let's think about accumulating debt is mainly boomers' fault, right? Like talking about debt crisis, all that, like the liberalism which occurred in the 80s, 90s, like you can't blame on the younger generation. We just like suffer from it, right? So yeah, like I think it's a good thing that young people go out, even though I don't agree with what they're voting for because sometimes they vote for stuff which is actually against their interests. But overall, it's good that younger people finally, because it's seriously, it's finally that they go to vote and like kind of voice up.
What I think would have been interesting in Belize is that if this was not an election where the government was just being voted out, it was not a
Yeah,
wave. Let's say if
yeah,
the issues were the main thing, I
yeah,
wonder what the turnout would have been because there were certain issues that neither party really addressed publicly. They said
yeah,
they just have like a one-page document on it, both the UDP and the PUP. And I think there are many issues that got overlooked because this was simply an election to vote these guys out, and there were so many issues. One of the I was just discussing this with a colleague last night. She is she is trans, and she said she does not really think either of the political parties had any plans for the
Hmm.
LGBT community. And while they did discuss that issue, it was not a front burner issue. And so I could understand why she and probably a lot of people like her would be upset.
Yeah.
There was really no heavy debate on that topic. And there were
How's that anyway in
many,
Belize right now? Currently, what's the legislation there? Like
um,
LGBT, is it legal to be gay, lesbian,
well,
or?
we recently saw the proposal of a equalities bill. The bill has been pulled back. This bill does not just apply to people from the LGBTQ community.
Hmm.
It targets many different areas of people, such as children who suffer from diseases, to make sure that people who are in wheelchair or they have some defect don't get treated differently. So
Hmm.
it was not just blanket about
Yeah,
the
it was
LGBT.
it was more like discrimination, I guess. Like,
That's the
yeah,
word. Sorry, yeah, that's the word,
yeah,
discrimination.
that's probably the word
The,
you're looking for. Then, yeah.
the churches fought this
Oh,
just
fuck.
because of the LGBTQ
Yeah,
portion.
yeah.
I think the then administration pulled back on it and
Hmm.
decided to leave it to whoever got voted in to deal with it. I read the bill personally, and I think it's something that needs to be pushed forward. Especially a part that really got to me is looking at people who are have some defect, or those who might have got injured in a
Yeah,
car accident and they don't have an arm, or they can't really speak as well, or they can't
yeah,
walk in a wheelchair. I don't think those persons should ever be discriminated against, because a person like that might be brilliant, completely brilliant, but cannot show his or her true potential because
yeah.
of what they're going through, and it's unfortunate. So
No, I totally agree. Yeah, I totally
but
agree.
in terms of the going back a bit to the LGBT issue, um, 2016, I believe, the Supreme Court of Belize struck down the law, Section 53.
Jeez, you know the section a lot.
Basically, yeah,
Law student
there's
right there.
actually I remember that because there's a hotel in York that's named Hotel 53. So
Oh, okay.
that's
Good. All right. Fair enough, I guess.
But what it was saying is that section was saying that it was illegal if you have two people who are of the same sex to be
Yeah.
together in their homes and do whatever they do in their homes. So that was struck down. However, it's you still can't get married if you're of the
Mm.
same sex in Belize. So it's interesting to see what will be the scenario with this
Hmm.
administration if they're going to progress towards that. I'm not really sure. The thing is, though, Belize is ranked as one of the most homophobic countries,
Oh,
and
for
I
real.
can think that is true because I've seen it when you go out to party at the club. You can see some people, they don't go to certain
Yeah.
places because
Yeah.
they don't want to be attacked or anything like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the equalities bill will bring a lot of those things to light, and I hopefully it gets introduced in the House of
It's
Representatives and it
yeah.
passed.
It's a Catholic or Protestant country, or
Most of it is Catholic,
oh,
a
okay.
large
Yeah.
part.
I mean, you said Latino,
Catholic.
so I guess Catholic.
The three main ones in Belize are Catholic,
Yeah.
Anglican, and Methodist. Those
Oh,
are the
Anglican.
like
Yeah.
big groups. But you do
Right.
have like Baptist and all of those other
Hmm.
denominations.
Fair enough. right? I think we could go to the kind of last topic, I guess. Also because of time, actually, look, we already it's 40 minutes. I try to keep the podcast usually below an hour. But yeah, the last thing, which because there's a small outro. But the last thing I wanted to ask was, obviously we've all followed the US elections, which was already 2 weeks ago, and
It was like forever.
And Joe Biden won. That kind of won because there's still dispute, which doesn't have any evidence back to it. But oh well. How was the election perceived in Belize? And do you think there will be any changes in terms of their relationship? Because obviously, I think most of the tourists come from the US, I guess, and trading and all that trade partner. I think the US must be the main guy for Belize.
All right, so let me say, I'll try to deal with them in that order if I can remember.
Yeah.
How was the election perceived in Belize? If Belizean people could vote, they would get, Joe Biden will get a large majority of those votes. People followed this election as if it was their own. The people were losing their minds, saying they want to throw their remotes at the television when they heard that Donald Trump might win.
Oh wow, really?
People in Belize took this election. I think every U.S. election for Belizeans, we just watch it because we know the United States is the superpower, and so we have an interest. What happens in the U.S. really affects a lot of the world.
Of course, I mean that's why I watch it as well, and that's why I think most people should at least know what's going on.
It is so. I do know some people did support Donald Trump in Belize, but majority of Belizeans were in favor of Joe Biden to be the president of the United States. A lot of them were big fans of Kamala Harris because she broke a barrier, being the first woman to be either a president or vice president.
Yeah,
and so that was a big thing.
Yeah,
And so it for that week, it felt like no one really talked about the Belize election, which was a week later. Everyone was like the U.S. election, the U.S. election.
Yeah.
And then when it was our turn, then we kind of put them in the back burner. But people supported mostly Joe Biden.
That's interesting because sorry, I just wanted to say there are a lot of countries, obviously, we know who support Joe Biden, or who supported Joe Biden during the election. But actually, I found out recently that a lot of Vietnamese people, I wouldn't say majority because I can't talk for the majority, but I think a lot of Vietnamese people supported Trump just because of his anti-China rhetoric. So it's not even, I'm not taking for granted anymore if a country is anti-Trump because it takes a bit to be anti-Trump as a country, because there are a lot of countries which hoped that Trump was going to win. But yeah, please continue. Sorry for interrupting.
No worries. In terms of our relations, the United States is our biggest trading partner, and we currently do not have an ambassador. Donald Trump did not appoint an ambassador to Belize. Apparently, he has not done so with many different countries, or as he called them, shithole countries.
Do you think that was targeted to Belize though? I thought he was targeting African countries, wasn't it?
Well, I don't think it was talking to Belize, but the fact that many of the small countries in the world do not have ambassadors appointed to them during the Donald Trump administration kind of illustrates what he possibly thinks of us.
Yeah.
Not saying he does, but that's just an indication in my view. I think with Joe Biden, we will get a ambassador appointed to Belize. And like I said, they are our biggest trading partner, especially with military.
Yeah.
They do provide a lot of military equipment to Belize. And the United States is the country where most Belizeans go to visit. So we have extremely good relations. I think those relations will continue to be good. I think probably even bolster under President-elect Biden. But we've always had a good relationship. Nothing really bad between the two of us. My personal issue, though, and I don't mean to get personal here, but
Yeah.
when it comes to the Belize Guatemala border dispute, which I think is trash.
Yeah.
Uh, the United States in previous times have sided with Guatemala. So that's my only problem I have with our relations. Other than that, it's been really smooth. It's been above par, pretty great.
But that has been across parties, right? So Republicans and Democrats, you thought were like sided with
Yeah.
Guatemala for.
Yes. Well, these are mostly older times. I don't really know exactly where they stand now. I think
Yeah.
they're really just observing. They have not really taken too much of a side. But in the past, I'm talking about maybe the 80s, they
Yeah.
did take a side when they had to vote.
Yeah.
So, but other than that, it is really good. It's very strong, and I think it's going to get stronger, and I hope it does get stronger because in a time as COVID, third world countries like this one needs all the help it can get
Yeah.
and open new doors. What I
Yeah.
think is going to be very interesting is how will the US work with Belize if Belize wants to find new find other trading partners in countries that might not be fully aligned with the United States.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's going to happen, but I know both political parties were saying in Belize that we also want to find new avenues to trade. We have a lot to offer, and the world has a
Yeah.
lot to offer to us. And, like, for example, we are one of the biggest producers of sugar. The sugar that you used to love putting in your tea mostly came from Belize, even though it says Tate and Lyle. It was really from Belize. This is where the plantation is at. So we have a lot to offer to the world. The world has a lot to offer to us, and we
Yeah.
do need to open new corridors to places. I find it interesting to see if we do that, how will the USA react?
Yeah. I mean, that's always the thing as well. It's like as soon as you do trade deals with other countries except for the US, kind of the US gets involved in there. Happened a lot of times. But yeah, that's really interesting. I'm pretty sure Belize is in CARICOM, right?
Yes, we are.
Trade is it's free trade. It's a free trade agreement between the Caribbean states. I think the biggest countries there are like probably Jamaica,
Trinidad
Trinidad,
and
uh,
Barbados.
Barbados. Yeah, I mean
It's
that.
interesting because while they are the biggest, way back in the 60s ish, there was a thing called the West Indies Federation, and Jamaica, Trinidad, and Barbados were the main countries, and
Yeah.
they still are the main countries in CARICOM. But trading CARICOM has been great. There's really not much problems. Some small ones or ones that we probably don't know about. But
Mm-hmm.
yes, we trade a lot with the rest of the
But
Caribbean.
you like Belize would consider like all the CARICOM members as their closest allies, right? Like except for the
Yes.
US, or is there any country where it'd be like, we are literally only economically friends, but in general, like nah.
The Caribbean, very our I would say they're the Caribbean and even Central America, because we are part of Central America as well. Association known as SICA. Um, yeah, they're very close to us. They're like that. They're like the group of friends that you go out with. They're
Yeah,
always there.
yeah,
So yes, we do have extremely good relations with them,
they got your back.
and
They got your back.
they do. They do.
Yeah,
They really do. Interestingly, one of our very close ally is Taiwan. They were the first to go and
I remember
congratulate
that.
the new prime minister. Um, they were one of the last few countries that have a very strong relationship with Taiwan. There are a lot
Shout
of
out to Taiwan,
students
by
in
the way.
Belize. Yeah.
My
Uh,
guys.
they do have a lot of Belizean students who go to Taiwan on scholarships to study.
Oh, really?
And we do have Taiwanese who live in Belize, as you have seen when you
Yeah,
came to Belize.
I went to a shop there actually, and it's like Taiwanese, and I said, bro, the only Asians I saw there were all Taiwanese. So I guess,
Yeah,
yeah. But
Good people.
that's also like you don't find that often, especially Taiwan, especially because so many countries just rely on China that they are way too scared on recognizing Taiwan. But that's good to know. So Belize recognizes Taiwan as a state?
Yes, we do.
Yeah,
we do.
Like, oh, so it's like one of like, was it? There are only 60 countries, 70 countries, I think, who recognize it as a state.
Recently in the region, Panama went over to China, and I think it was Dominican Republic that might have
Yeah,
turned to China instead of Taiwan. I'm not sure. It's
switching sides.
interesting though,
Yeah,
when that happened. Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen immediately came to Belize after to make sure she could shore up the relationship between Belize and Taiwan.
yeah,
So some people who do not support the current and newly elected government are saying that they might turn their allegiance to China. I
yeah.
don't think that will happen. I think we will stay with Taiwan, but we'll see. We never know.
I mean,
Taiwan has a lot for
it is
Belize.
quite important, isn't it? Like people like should understand that it doesn't matter which country, but as soon as there are countries who recognize Taiwan, it makes a huge like impact, because the more countries who recognize Taiwan, the more China understands that they can't just occupy, or like they can't just claim everything, you know.
Yeah,
Not everyone's their little bitch, like in those words. But so that's really interesting. So I think as well, Trump was actually siding more on Taiwan as well. I don't really can't think of like a proper situation where that happened, like where he explicitly said that. But I mean, excluding Taiwan. Sorry, I got something.
you hearing something in the background?
Yeah.
All right,
But something
give.
about like Trump and Taiwan, like I actually really liked about it, mainly because he at least showed that China is a threat, or can be a threat, and so that's a cool topic, man. And I think we should conclude that with the last question, which is totally unrelated to politics, which would be, but still related to Belize, which is, if you give me 3 spots in Belize, your home place, which you also have visited, which one would you recommend to people who would visit Belize? And give me the reasons why, right? Like, don't just give me like the city. It's just because it's sick, like, or because it's lit, like, you know. Gotta specify spot and what to do there, what time.
Oh, okay.
3.
Belize is comprised of 6 districts. I would recommend anyone who listen to this podcast, if you come to Belize, be sure to go to the Cayo district, one of the most beautiful places in the country. That's more like in the west and the hills, so it's very cool at night.
Okay.
We have beautiful Maya ruins out there.
All right, yeah.
Nice food.
We visited one, didn't we?
So
or
we
was
went
it
to Sinantinich. That's
okay.
the one we went to. But yeah, it's a beautiful place. You can go horseback riding. The scenery is amazing. That's what I love the most about it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
The next place I would say is definitely go to the islands, San Pedro and Key Cocker. In Belize, we don't really say islands. We call them Key, Caye, but they're islands.
Yeah.
And so, they'll go to those 2 places. I'm going to put them as one here.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, like it is similar thing as it's like beach vibes and fucking chilling chilling in the water and all of this. I missed that trip actually now, but yeah, continue.
Almost 3 years, you know that. Those places you first of all, beautiful views. You could go snorkeling, fishing, swimming with the sharks like we did when you guys came to Belize. There's so many things.
All of us did it, didn't we? Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Andrew was before didn't want to do it because he said he did it already. He did.
And it's really nice place. Also for people who might want to get married or are planning to get married, Belize is a great destination to do that. We have plenty of locations that cater to that sort of thing, and I think that it's also a boost in tourism in that sector.
Yeah.
Having people, I've seen pictures of people being married on beaches, and I'm like, this looks nice, and then I read the article, and it's Belize. So, um, so to those of you out there who are planning to, make that decision, I wish you well. Belize is also an option to come, bring the family, bring the friends, go to the Keys and get married. It's an amazing place. My final place would be
your home.
You know what? Yeah.
Yeah, your home. Belize City.
Belize City.
What exactly to do there? Yeah, historical.
Very historical. The museum is here. A lot of our history is in the city. Amazing. So many cuisines. Many places with different cuisines.
Yeah.
It does not have a lot of tourist sites like the other part of the country, but a lot of historical buildings, a lot of historical information you can find in the city because this is where Belize City was where it was at. This used to be the capital of the country. This was the biggest and is still the biggest.
You're getting a lot of messages here, mate.
Sorry?
I think you're getting a lot of notification on your phone. I hear the vibration. It's right. Sorry.
I just read one and I just saw COVID in it, so I guess something. But yeah, yeah, those are the places I would tell anyone coming to Belize.
Nice one. I mean,
and anyone else listening out there, our currency is a Belizean dollar. We also accept US currency. The exchange rate is $1 is 2 Belize dollars.
It's pegged, isn't it? It doesn't change.
And in terms of the British pound, I don't know the exact number, but the last time I looked, one British pound was $2.75 Belize. I don't know if that has changed.
I think most of my listeners are from continental Europe, so they'll probably use euro. But yeah, there are obviously a lot of people who listen obviously with pounds. But I guess US dollar, Belizean dollar, that's already like a helpful thing. I guess like from my experience when I went to Belize, the thing which was really unique to me, and it is very unique actually nowadays, is that there weren't big like normal like big companies you just see everywhere. You know, there's no McDonald's in Belize, no Burger King, no stuff like that. Well, in 2018 when I was, I'm not sure if it's.
Well, there's still not. But that's because we have so much of our local cuisine. Tourists don't really come to Belize hoping to see that sort of thing.
Exactly.
We do have our own places that do their version, their burgers, which I think is even nice, but it's not the constant fast food.
Yeah.
But those you don't really see.
That's what I was talking about. That's what I really like at Belize. Anyway, thank you, man. Thanks for the talk. Always nice talking to you, mate. I don't know. Do you have any concluding words? Nah. Yeah.
Once again, thanks for having me. This was pretty fun. This is my this is my fifth podcast, and
same. All right, mate. I'm gonna press stop recording now.
All right, but take